Hello Cloud Pedagogians, welcome back to the lab course. In today's lab, we are going to work around with S3 buckets. Amazon S3 is a standalone storage solution that is not tied to compute. So if you are ready with the lab, we'll just dive into. First we'll see the task. In the task 1, we will create a bucket and upload some objects inside the bucket. In the task 2, we will access those objects using public URL. In the task 3, we will enable the versioning for this bucket. Finally, in the fourth task, we will clear all the resources so that we don't incur the charges. So, start with the task 1. Create the bucket. Let's create a bucket in the console. When you log in, you will type S3 in the search bar. Once you click on it, you will see the S3 dashboard showing you all the available buckets for every region. I will then select Create Bucket. What I want to point out here is that buckets are region specific, so we can choose where we want to place our bucket. In this case, we want to place our bucket close to our infrastructure for our application, which is in North Virginia region, so we will choose North Virginia. Next, we have the name of our bucket, even though our bucket is specific to one region. Our bucket name has to be globally unique across all AWS accounts and must be DNS compliant. Once you create your bucket, AWS construct a URL using this name, so it has to be something that is reachable over HTTP or HTTPS, meaning that there can be no special characters, no spaces, etc. So for this bucket's name, let's choose student directory photo bucket 123, which is DNS compliant. Now we can leave the rest as defaults. Scroll down, click Create. To work with this bucket, I will need to find it in the list and click on its name. Here we can start uploading our objects. To do this, I will click Upload and then Add Files. Now I can choose any file I want. For example, in this case, I am selecting student1.jpg and then click Upload. So as you can see, the object upload was successful. If I click on the name of my object, I will be able to see quite a bit of details. I can see the owner, region and size, but most importantly, we can see the URL of my object. The first part of this URL is simply my bucket URL that AWS created using the bucket name. Then AWS appended the name of my object, also referred to as the object key, to the bucket URL. Congratulations, you have created the bucket and uploaded the objects successfully. In the next task, we will try to access these objects using the public URL. So now what happens if I click on this URL? Access denied. That's weird, right? Well, not really. That access denied message leads us to a bigger question that most people have when they start with AWS, and that's who can access my data. Earlier I mentioned that you can retrieve your data from anywhere on the web, and people often think that means that anyone can retrieve that data. But by default, it's actually the opposite. Everything in S3 is private by default. This means that all S3 resources such as buckets, folders and objects can only be viewed by the user or AWS account that created that resource. That's why I got an access denied message, because I was acting as an anonymous user on the internet trying to access an S3 object which is private. Now that's not to say no object or bucket can be open to the world. They absolutely can be if you explicitly choose that option, and it's actually kind of a process to make something public. The reason it's difficult to make your objects public is to prevent accidental exposure of your data. Let's try it. Okay, so if we want to make the object we created public, we need to do a few things. Normally, from the object detail page, we would be able to click on the object actions drop down and then select make public using ACL. But it is currently not available for us to select. Going to the bucket details page, I can select the permissions tab and see that there is a default setting that blocks all the public access. From there, I can verify that block public access bucket setting is set to block all public access. I will click edit, then uncheck the top box that blocks all public access and then save the changes. I will type confirm to make sure that the change and then click confirm to finalize it. From there, I'll go back to the bucket permissions tab and scroll down to the object ownership section, click edit for this pane. Instead of the default setting to disable access control list or ACLs, I will select ACLs enabled. Then acknowledge and then save the changes. Now I can go back to the object details page and select make public using ACL from the object actions drop-down. This will allow me to make the object public. To view the object, all I need to do is go back to the object details, find the URL and then click on it to view the photo. That's how you make an object public. That being said, most of the time you don't want your permissions to be all or nothing, to where either nobody can access it or everybody can see it. Typically, you want to be more granular about the way you provide access to the resources. As for access control, you can use IAM policies attached to users, groups and roles to access your S3 content, and you can also use a feature called S3 bucket policies. S3 bucket policies are similar to IAM policies in that they both define using the same policy language in JSON format. The difference is IAM policies are attached to users, groups and roles, where S3 bucket policies are only attached to buckets. S3 bucket policies specify what actions you are allowed or denied on that bucket. For example, you might want to attach an S3 bucket policy to it that allows another AWS account to put objects in that bucket. Or you might want to create a bucket policy that allows read-only permissions to anonymous viewers. S3 bucket policies can be placed on buckets and cannot be used for folders or objects. However, this policy that is placed on the bucket can apply to every object in that bucket. Congrats, you have completed the task 2 as well. Now you understood that S3 uses containers called buckets to store your objects, and you have several options to control access to those objects through the use of IAM policies and bucket policies. In the task 3, we will try to enable the versioning on the bucket. Versioning is a means of keeping multiple variants of an object in the same bucket. With versioning, you can easily recover from both unintended user actions and application failures. So, back on the bucket page, click the Properties tab. In the bucket versioning section, click Edit. Click Enable to enable bucket versioning and then click Save Changes. Now we'll try to upload another image to test versioning. Click the Object tab, click Upload and then click Add Files. Rename student2.jpg to student1.jpg. This way you will upload a different image than the original student1.jpg image. Upload the newly renamed student1.jpg image. Click upload. After the file uploads successfully, click its name to view its properties. Click the versions tab. You should see there are two versions of the student1.jpg file. Select Object Actions. Make public using ACL. Now click Make Public. Click the Properties tab. Open the object URL in a browser. This time you should be able to see the new image. Back on the student1.jpg page, click the Versions tab. Click the null object. Open its object URL in a new browser. You should see the original student1.jpg file. Congrats, you have used versionings to preserve, retrieve and restore every version of every object stored in your Amazon S3 bucket. In the final task, we'll clear all the resources. As we know already, bucket names are unique. If you delete a bucket, another AWS user can use the name. If you want to continue to use the same bucket name, don't delete the bucket. Instead, it's recommended that you empty the bucket and keep it. So, in the bucket list, select the option next to the name of the bucket that you want to delete, and then choose Delete at the top of the page. On the Delete Bucket page, confirm that you want to delete the bucket by entering the bucket name into the text field and then choose Delete Bucket. Congratulations, you have completed the lab successfully by implementing all the basics of S3. Hope you enjoyed the lab. We'll meet you again in the next session. Until then, take care.